I still remember the day as if it's burned into my memory forever. My name's Ryan, and I wasn't just a student at Ridgefield High, I was the guy who always sat in the back, watching. Watching as people showed who they really were when no one else was paying attention. That morning, the air felt different. Maybe it was the gray clouds pressed low against the sky or the way the hallways buzzed louder than usual, but I swear I could feel something brewing. I didn't know then that I was about to witness a moment that would make me rethink everything I thought I knew about strength, courage, and the human spirit. And it all started with a girl named Emily Carter, the quietest person in our entire grade. Emily was the kind of girl who slipped through life unnoticed. Pale, shy, always carrying a stack of books like a shield between her and the world. She never made eye contact for more than a second, and her voice was barely above a whisper. People assumed she was fragile, that she wouldn't or couldn't stand up for herself. And that assumption was exactly why people like Brent Matthews felt so confident in picking on her. Brent wasn't just any bully, he was the bully. Big, broad-shouldered, a football player with a sneer that could drain the life out of a room. Teachers didn't scare him, the principal didn't faze him, but he loved making people smaller than him feel invisible. That day in the cafeteria, it happened. Emily was walking with her lunch tray, eyes down, weaving quietly between tables when Brent stepped right into her path. The thud of the collision made a few heads turn, but most people ignored it. We'd seen Brent pull stunts like this before. "Watch where you're going, Mouse," Brent sneered, and in one quick motion, he reached out and shoved her shoulder. The tray wobbled. Mashed potatoes slid dangerously close to the edge. Gasps rippled through the air as he went further, laying a hand on her arm and yanking her toward him. I could see her stumble, her hair falling across her face like a curtain. That's when I saw it. Her eyes. Emily lifted her head just enough for me to catch the look, not of fear, but something else entirely. Cold. Controlled. Like a switch had flipped somewhere deep inside her. Brent had no idea that he had just stepped into the wrong kind of storm. It happened fast, faster than anyone could process. In the time it would take to count to 10, Brent was on the ground, clutching his wrist in shock, his face twisted in pain. The entire cafeteria froze. Emily hadn't screamed. She hadn't even raised her voice. She just moved, precise, deliberate, like she'd been trained for this exact moment her whole life. The silence was deafening until the whispers started. "Did you see that? What just happened?" She broke his grip like it was nothing. I just sat there, stunned, my pulse racing, wondering how the girl who barely spoke had just dismantled the most feared kid in school without breaking a sweat. But I could tell by the way Emily quietly picked up her tray and walked away that this wasn't a fluke. There was a story here, one I was determined to find out. Before I continue, I want you watching this, to stick with me until the very end of this story. Because what I learned about Emily in the days that followed didn't just change the way I saw her. It changed the way I see courage, the way I see people, and maybe, the way I see myself. So, if you haven't yet, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, because you're going to want to hear how this ends. The rumors spread through Ridgefield High like wildfire. People wanted to know what happened in the cafeteria, how Emily had dropped Brent so fast, and more importantly, why. Some said she knew karate, others swore she'd been in trouble before. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something deeper. I saw her again 2 days later, sitting alone under the bleachers after school. The autumn wind tugged at her hair as she read a battered paperback, completely unbothered by the noise of football practice nearby. I almost walked past her, but something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was guilt for sitting back and watching all those times Brent picked on people and doing nothing. I sat down beside her, awkward at first. She didn't look up. "You were pretty incredible the other day," I said. She finally closed her book, her expression unreadable. "It wasn't incredible," she said quietly. "It was necessary." That's when she told me the truth, how her dad, a retired Marine, had taught her self-defense since she was little, not because she wanted to fight, but because he wanted her to be able to protect herself in a world that doesn't always protect quiet girls. She told me about the years of keeping her head down, hoping bullies like Brent would leave her alone. But that day in the cafeteria, when he grabbed her arm, something in her decided she wasn't going to be small anymore. Word of what happened reached the school administration, and to everyone's surprise, Brent was suspended. For once, his smirk was gone. But the bigger change happened in the halls. People started noticing Emily not just because of the fight, but because she walked differently now. Her shoulders were squared. Her steps were steady. And maybe it was my imagination, but the air around her seemed lighter. I realized then that courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet until it has to roar. And Emily's roar had silenced every voice that ever tried to shrink her. By the end of the semester, Brent kept his distance from everyone, and Emily, well, she didn't exactly become the center of attention, but she didn't need to. She was living on her own terms, and that was enough. Now, months later, I'm telling you this story because I was there. I saw the moment a shy girl stopped being prey and became something untouchable. I saw the way one act of standing up for yourself can ripple through an entire school. And maybe, just maybe, I'm hoping that if you're watching this and you've been made to feel small, you'll remember Emily. You'll remember that sometimes it only takes 10 seconds to change everything. And if her story moved you even half as much as it moved me, do yourself a favor, like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because you never know, you might be the one to start your own storm.